Wow. Okay, let's talk about the United States as well to get the latest here, Cody. He was named a person of interest, and that came from the sheriff in Virginia, in Loudoun County. What is he saying about Joshua Ribe now?
Well, they have now, Vinny, released a statement pretty much saying, quote, Joshua Ribe is no longer a person of interest. It's an ongoing investigation, but in that regard, he's not a person of interest anymore, in that he's been interviewed as part of the case. It's still not a criminal investigation in any way from our perspective. He is not considered a suspect by us. So, seems, Vinny, that he's now off the hook, according to Loudoun County.
All right, Darnell, Crosland first. That scene inside the Dominican courtroom, what are your thoughts there? I mean, that was complete madness. My guess is they've never had a story quite this big.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing about it is, you know, when you looked at that scene, if you've been to DR as much as I have, you realize that they have the Policía Nacional, which is the police that has jurisdiction to deal with Dominicans who may break the law. And then they have the Politor, which is the tourist police. And then they have the national police, and who dress in military gear. And when you looked at that scene, you had almost no room because they had the military police, the Politor, they had the Policía Nacional. They had all these police officers in there, and it was so intimidating, I'm sure, for all families. And of course, they were conducting the business in Spanish. And the judge made it clear that, you know, while they respect the media needs to respect the procedures. So it was just a madhouse, and I'm sure the temperatures were running high.
All right, let me ask you, Darnell, what are your thoughts about Joshua Ribe when he returns to the United States? Should he ever talk about this? What, do you think he'll be advised just to never sit? Because he's going to get calls from everybody, right? All major media is going to track him down. Everyone's going to want to talk to him. They're going to want to get his story. They're saying it's an accident. What advice do you think he's going to get? What do you think he's going to do when he returns?
Well, I think the first thing you have to remember legally, when you look up the Dominican Republic law, and again, I studied the law there and I've been there for a couple summers. The Dominican Republic specifically allows the United States to charge you with crimes that were committed in the Dominican Republic, even if they weren't illegal in the Dominican Republic. Now, we know murder is illegal everywhere, but just because he's off the hook in Dominican Republic, the second thing I thought about was if the investigation is ongoing and the U.S. finds that there's evidence to show that he may have been involved, he can be on the hook here in the U.S. So I think he has to tread lightly, but maybe not so lightly if they're going to close the investigation, but we don't know. But you don't want to say, well, I got off, you know, got away with, you know, I hate to say with murder there, and I can come up here and do all the interviews I want because there's no jurisdiction. If we find that something comes up and he confesses or there's some diary about this, he can be charged in the United States with a crime he committed in the Dominican Republic. So he has to tread lightly with that. And I'm just hoping it was an accidental drowning, because I would hate to think that it was more than that.
Yeah, you know, he did tell his story. He cooperated from the beginning. I mean, there was never a moment where he wasn't, where they said he stopped talking or wouldn't cooperate. Now, Joshua Ribe's father was with his son for the hearing. He reportedly was called as a witness. Telemundo got video of his arrival at the court for the hearing, and we're taking a look at it right there. There's his father, and that's a difficult spot as well for him in all of this, Cody, because Joshua Ribe's going to come back to the United States. Everyone's going to know about this story, and I'm wondering what tact, like I asked Darnell, what tact the family will take. Because everyone's going to be knocking on their door. Everyone's going to be asking him to tell his story. But we haven't seen him tell his story publicly, right? Just in the interviews with investigators.
Only in the interviews with investigators, only on the stand in the court hearing, not anything publicly, not anything on social media, no post about anything, no family friends or friends from his college that have said anything like, oh, he called me and said this or sent me this message. He's only said things to those Dominican officials, and again, in court during that hearing today where his freedom request was granted.
And Darnell, do you think there'll be a cloud of suspicion over his head, or do you think people are looking at this, the family of Sudiksha seems like they believe it was an accident? that at this point, at least, the investigation has never been a criminal investigation. He's never been named a suspect. Do you think that the public, whether it's social media or friends of his at school or just classmates at school, will let him live and not make this thing define his existence?
It's going to be a really, really, really tough road to hoe, because, as you know, the fact that he had so much media, probably he looks like he was befuddled. That it was just so much media, and people are only interested in just the news heading. They're not interested in what's behind that. So he's with a young lady who's now presumed dead, and he's the last person with her. And he has to carry that, I think, for the rest of his life. The funny thing about the scene, why people are going to still be curious, is because it's one thing to drown, but the ocean comes and goes. It doesn't just, go and go and go and go. I'm surprised we haven't found a body. And because of that, if we found a body, then his friends will let him rest. But with no body, he's going to have to live with this, and he's going to be under some really extreme pressures and that dark cloud for a long time.
All right, Darnell Crosland, thank you so much. Always great to have your help. Cody's going to stick around. Coming up next, he's told his story, but does Ribe's story make sense?